Welcome to the wacky and wild world of myth and stories.
This is our guest introducer tonight, Mystic Penguin 15.
And tonight's topic is what?
The final days of Kraken Mare, the last only city on the Titan moon, on the moon of Titan.
First, last, only, all of the above.
First, last,
yeah.
and only.
Um,
Yeah, no, I've read this story a while back, and I really wanted to cover it eventually. And it's a nice, I say simple story. Obviously, there with anything we do here on our podcast, it's never just a quick like, haha, 10-minute read and we're done. Nope, there's definitely a 2-hour thing going on.
It real quick.
Yeah. So yeah.
This one is kind of different in some ways. That it feels like a much more self-contained. Obviously, it has it talks about some events that are happening in the universe at large at the time that this takes place, but the lore book itself is a little more kind of focused into one.
It really is.
It's
one event that's happening, and this event is at the beginning of the collapse, which of course we've covered parts of the collapse before throughout our talks about Ada 1 and hell, even Mara, right? Like her whole story kind of starts with the collapse.
Yep.
And so we'll start with a little like I guess we'll set the scene here for our little story tonight. And it all starts with realistically it starts with the traveler, right?
Yeah.
Because the traveler, as it came to our system, as it came to the soul system, it started jumping around the system, terraforming pretty much anything and everything. Like, be it a moon, be it a planet, be it whatever. It was like, hey, look, stuff. I'm gonna start terraforming, and that was it. Like, I mean, we had what? Mercury was terraformed. Venus was terraformed. Mars was terraformed.
Yep.
Io was partially terraformed, and I'm kind of skipping ahead, but that's, we're getting there. Titan was Titan actually terraformed?
No.
No.
My understanding is that the Traveler never went to Titan. Titan was the first 100% like man-made colony. Like that. That's what made Titan so let's say so special.
Sure.
In a lot of ways, was like that was the first colony that they did of their own.
That humanity did. That was not. That was not of the it. So I guess in that sense, does Titan have like an atmosphere?
So they, as far as I know, they never talk about this. I don't imagine that real world Titan has a breathable atmosphere like we see, Sloane and everyone, all the Guardians.
Everyone's just sitting down there unmasked and unhelmeted.
I have to imagine that is not accurate. And I don't believe it mentions anywhere of the colonizers doing anything to make that happen. But I'm gonna suspend disbelief a little bit and say that, like, if they had the technology to build a colony there, they did so having the technology to do their own form of terraforming, do their own, like, give it an atmosphere of some sort.
That's what I'm thinking. That's what I personally think. That's my interpretation of that. Like it, because Titan, as much as it was. Like when, and obviously we can't go there now, except for in quote unquote simulations.
Yeah.
But when we went there was a whole what was it called? The
The
arcology.
arcology. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, there was a whole everything. There was a whole. There were forests. There was trees. There was, there's all this stuff. Like, I mean, little biomes just underneath glass that all existed out there in the methane seas of Titan.
And under the methane seas in some cases, like they had these facilities. The arcology I equated to um like a college or a university, like an MIT or something like that,
Oh,
where
sure,
the
sure.
whole point of it was research
Research and
and
study. Yeah, no, absolutely.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
can definitely agree with that.
So that was always my take on it, and then just the mysteries of Titan itself. We know there's some creatures roaming in the methane sea that are speculatory as to what they are,
Yep.
and how dangerous they may be.
And we used to be able to see one, right? Like that's
Yep. In two instances, you could see it when you were in a certain area of the arcology that had windows that
Mhm.
were under the methane sea. The silhouette of the Leviathan of Titan is what it was referred to as. And there were some spots up on top that you could see kind of the back of the Leviathan crest over the waves every now and then.
almost like a Loch Ness monster
Yeah. Yep.
type
Same kind
type
of feel.
sighting. Like, hey, there's a thing there, and you don't really get the full picture of what the hell it is. And we still, even to this day, we still have no idea what it is, right?
No,
Like it's just referred to as the Leviathan
as the
of Titan.
Leviathan. Yep.
Not to be confused with the Leviathan, which is
And it was not a spaceship.
which is a ship.
Yes.
It is the Leviathan an actual ship
That's how it's always been presented.
that eats planets?
Yeah, that chews up planets and turns them into, wine.
Biofuel and wine?
For Callus's Talk to the Darkness experiments.
Boy, that's just a weird.
Refer back to the glycon.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Go watch our Glycon episode and we'll tell you how weird the Cabal are and how weird. I say weird, how just straight up nuts Callus is. Like he truly. Anyway, that's a different story.
He's off his rocker, but yes.
He's off his rocker. So we have this moon Titan, and it's a moon of Saturn. And I know that there's all these nice little touches when you used to go there. It was part of the original Red War campaign, and that's where Zavala, the main Titan, that totally wasn't done on purpose at all. That's where he went to find solace. That's where he was like, I need to get away and I need to kind of recoup, like get back into my own thoughts and come back to a leadership position after the light had been taken from him by way of Gaul. And there was all these like nice little touches when you're there. Like obviously by the time we get there, it's infested with hive and there's some fallen there.
Oh, yeah.
Like the whole thing, that the whole first part when we first get there, the whole thing is we've got to go ungunk the pistons because the way the whole place gets power is from the methane sea itself. It's a wave motion generator basically. So like as the waves comes or I guess not a generator, it's I guess a generator in the sense that it is generating power. It is taking a wave. See, now we're going to get into physics, and I'm going to get some stuff mixed up, and some random person is going to be like, "Hey, that's not how physics works," and I'm going to be like, "Hey, I know. I only studied it once." But basically, there's these machines that, as the waves of the methane seas pass by them, the wave motion is causing this piston to oscillate, which is then creating the mechanism that it is oscillating is generating electricity for the the arcology, and that's just part of that's. And I think you're right. Obviously, you're right. That very much shows how much of a man-made structure that is, right? Because like if it was like a terraform thing, like I feel like they like either there'd be no methane sea, there'd be land masses in places, right? Like there wouldn't be, you wouldn't have to worry about things like that. But to see that level of ingenuity of saying, hey, we're taking one form of energy, be that the wave energy itself, and turning it into what would that be? Taking the potential energy of the wave that then gets put into kinetic energy of the movement of the pistons, which then transfers into electromagnetic energy to create electricity for the create. And see, as soon as I use the word create, some random guy is going to be like,
Transfer.
"Hey, energy cannot be created or destroyed," and I'll be like, "All right, fine, transferred from." Anyway,
Yeah.
see, physics is fun until you start talking to people who know physics, and then they get all physicky about it. But anyway, so that's very much the structure there, and another neat little touch there that I always liked when I went there. I'd always look up in the skybox and look at Saturn, and you could see the remnants of the Battle of Saturn.
Yeah, the hole in the ring.
The hole in the rings where the dreadnought sits.
Where the dreadnought was, yeah.
And so my assumption, and again, this is kind of like drawing conclusions. The dreadnought's still there.
Oh, it absolutely is.
It's just a dead thing sitting there. Like it's
not like anyone's driving it anywhere.
Right. Like
it's just in orbit now as a piece of debris.
Yeah. With a Cabal ship shoved in it.
And maybe soon to be Guardians resurfacing on it.
Oh, fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. We're all very hopeful for Witch Queen. Yes. Return to King's Fall.
Slightly off topic.
No. This all has to do with Titan.
The latest teaser trailer for Witch Queen came out a couple days ago.
I missed it.
It was another one of the just like zoom in on the conspiracy board and then cut a dialogue or two and all the dialogue stuff we'd heard before.
Right.
They didn't show anything of significance. You think, but when you go back and look, one of the maps on the conspiracy board is of the dreadnought.
God dang it!
Similar to how one of the maps in the very
was Mars
was Mars from D1.
God dang it!
Yeah, it might be nothing. Might be a hint. I'm hoping that they're gonna give us something, but we'll see.
I'm gonna have to go find this thing now. But yeah, so Titan is a moon of Saturn, and it was not terraformed by the Traveler, but the Traveler came really close to it at one point in time. I guess multiple points in time, by way of it was terraforming Io, which is a moon of Jupiter. And this was fairly recently. I want to say it was maybe last year, maybe as recent as last year. There was the I can't think what the actual scientific name for it. I think it's called like the Great Conjunction or something like that, where Saturn and Jupiter in their orbits come super, super close to each other, and you could actually see it like with the naked eye. And then if you were a crazy person like me, you went and got your spotter scope and set it up in the bed of your wife's truck, and you could actually see it was super faint, but you could totally see the rings of Saturn itself, Jupiter, and 3 moons of Jupiter, Io, Europa, and Galileo. I believe they're the 3 biggest moons of Jupiter, and that was a super, super cool experience to be able to see that and be able to relate that in game and go, hey, like that's where we're going to in these places. This is super cool to see something like that.
Yeah, no, you get the telescope out and you point it up there and you go, yep, right there is the hole in the rings of Saturn.
Yep.
Wait a minute.
Totally there. It's
Totally
totally
there.
there. God dang it. Yeah. Ruin my moment. I take it. No. So anyway, so the traveler obviously had gone to Io or gone to all these places and terraformed them. The first place that we had seen the traveler terraform at was Mars, right?
Yes.
Like that was
That was the first place we had seen. I believe it had terraformed planets prior to that,
right.
which is what keyed off, humanity that like, hey, there's something out there doing things to the solar system. We should
Yeah.
probably figure out a way to intercept it.
And it's interesting to me that it's interesting to me that like we didn't pick up on anything of the gravitational force of the traveler or even see, like, with how much we watch the skies, that we didn't see this blip flying across the way.
It's tiny though by comparison. Like it's roughly the size of a city, of the last city.
I can definitely agree with that. Like it's smaller than our moon.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean,
for a celestial body, I don't know if they would have been able to see it.
Pretty damn small. Like I mean, when you think of now, when you look up in the sky and you're like, oh, hey, that's a star, but you don't think that, the nearest star is what, 167 million light years away or something like that. Was that Vega 1, or am I?
Oh, I thought Alpha Centauri was the closest.
Alpha Centauri, that's the closest. Yeah. Technically the sun.
Ha.
But
that's
see, you can't. That's what I'm saying. Like, you can't have in astrophysics, you can't have a physics, you can't have in astronomy and astrology. Whatever. You can't have those talks without one guy going, well, technically, blah 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 blah.
One of these days, we'll actually get to the Kraken Mare book.
We will. I mean, eventually. It's only been like 20 minutes since we started. So anyway, God dang it, man! This is why I have you, to keep me on track.
Yeah. And to put you off track again, the traveler terraformed Jupiter, Mercury, and Venus prior to the Ares 1 mission.
It terraformed Jupiter?
It terraformed Jupiter, Mercury, and Venus before we met it on Mars. I don't know if we've ever actually been to Jupiter.
We've never been to Jupiter.
Oh,
it terraformed Jupiter?
An eye out for that. That's what the timeline says.
Terraformed Jupiter? We've only been here 20 minutes and I've gotten my mind blown. Questioning life as I know it. I terraformed Jupiter?
That is what this timeline says. Now I do not know what their source is on that.
I was going to say I'm a little skeptical.
Pretty accurate with most of the other things. Let's see here.
I'm gonna stay a little skeptical, and while you research when the hell Jupiter was formed, I'm gonna try to get back to Kraken Mare.
You do that.
So the traveler terraforms apparently Jupiter, Venus, Mercury, Mars, and then starts at one point in time heads to Io, and is terraforming Io, one of the moons of Jupiter, and at some point in time during our golden age, we end up on Titan, and we as humanity build the arcology and the what is from my understanding, Kraken Mare is like the name of the entire colony there, right? Like it would be the equivalency of like Exodus Green, right? Like that Exodus Green was an entire colony ship, and Kraken Mare is the entirety of the colony on Titan, all 4 biomes or however many it was of it, that we got to go visit during the Red War, and up until the darkness took Titan. The darkness being Bungie and sunsetting. But anyway.
I found our source.
Oh crap. All right.
This is a ghost fragment from Destiny 1, specifically ghost fragment human. It is from the diaries of Commander Jacob Hardy, pilot of the Ares 1. The relevant section reads, "Now we go because we have to, because the unknown came to us. In 14 months, we'll be face to face with it, and by the time we arrive, it should be active again, just like it was active on Jupiter and Mercury and Venus. I wonder what happens if it doesn't stop at Mars." Now I'm seeing some commenters pointing out that Venus in this context may be the moons of Venus, not Venus itself.
And why not?
Or excuse me, Jupiter. The moons of Jupiter.
Oh, okay. I see.
Itself.
I see.
So but they don't say the moons of Jupiter. They say that it visited Jupiter. But
well, and the fact that it just says active, like we don't know what active means. Like
although the fact that 2 of the 3 of those active planets were terraformed.
Absolutely. And the one they're going to in 14 months will be at this one where it is active now. And when we and we see that in the opening scene of Destiny 1 of the team, Ares 1, right?
Ares 1, yep.
Ares 1, the team walk across Jupiter or now you got me on that. Walk across the red deserts of Mars and walk up to the Traveler, and it's as they get up there, it's raining, and that doesn't happen on Mars. Like there's no atmosphere for there to be, weather patterns. So yeah, until there was. Which, and again, not to completely sidetrack from Kraken, Mare, because we're all sorts of balls deep in this. I have absolutely loved the most recent stuff they've been doing on Mars. In our time, in present day, like to hear the recording of the wind on Mars, like to see them flying their little helicopter drone around on Mars, like.
It's
mind blowing. It's super cool, super cool. Like it's just, the thought that possibly, well, there's 2 thoughts that come to my mind. Like I've always been obsessed with space and planets and celestial bodies and the great unknown, or as Star Trek would put it, the final frontier. That's if we can get Gene Roddenberry to sponsor us, I'd be super grateful. That's not going to happen. Anyway, but yeah. So I've always been obsessed with stuff like that ever since I was a kid, and to think that in my lifetime, there for sure is going to be a moon like. A moon landing again. Blind mowing.
Yeah.
It's
that's how you lose fingers and feet.
This is true. Yes.
Don't mow the lawn in the dark, kids. Oh. So those gaps in Zor's audio are just his mic not deciding to pick up anything above a certain frequency.
That's the frequency at which I laugh.
So, let's take this
Give me a
opportunity.
second.
Uh,
Okay.
so
Okay, I'm good.
let's take this opportunity to bring ourselves back to the lore book we were supposed to be covering,
Yes,
um,
yes.
which is The Last Days on
The Last
Kraken
Days
Mare,
on Kraken Mare.
which takes place on Titan. I don't know if we said that, but that's why we were talking about Titan.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Not Mars. Not Mars. Like I know we went way off topic and we haven't even started. Like
we
we're
went
doing
all around the
we're
solar system.
we're the best at this.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so go. Did you want to go ahead and start us off there, then, Myth?
Yeah,
Since
sure.
I'm bad at keeping on track.
So I say what it starts us off kind of in the midst of events. This is not a lore book that gives you a nice like beginning leading up to a traditional climax and resolution. It's you're just in the thick of it, seeing how the people in this book are dealing with things.
Yep.
So this starts with again, the book is The Last Days on Kraken Mare. This is the Sixth Seal, Part 1, which is the first chapter. It's real, Mia Vanderven decides. We evacuate. Citizens first, then the old guard, and we assume that we are never coming back. No one breathes. Down beneath their meeting table, pouches of farmed salmon, beef, buttered carrots, and bok choy drift in the slow turbulence of the sous vide bath. On Mia's 100th anniversary as the new Pacific Systems and Facilities Administrator, she cashed in all her favors and installed a pocket restaurant beneath her table at the command deck. She liked the edible metaphor, the idea of watching your food slow cook all day before the meal. Savor the future you're making. If she's right about what's happening now, then there'll be no more long-term thinking, no more patience, and maybe no future at all. She waits for Xenia to boil over first. Xenia's the water ocean expert. She has the most to lose. Finch tiny Xenia McCaig slams her fist down with not a tenth the strength that her chimp-spliced muscles could summon. Now? Now? We can't leave now. We just finished the borehole. We're 1 day from a crewed expedition into Titan's biggest secret, and you want us to just leave it all? I do, Maya says sadly. Mari Yamashita, her lead diver, leaps in with the details she can always trust him to catch. Boss, if we abandon the borehole and the water lock, all the equipment's down there bathing in liquid methane, hydrogen sulfide, carboxylic acid. Leave it too long and we'll lose everything. There are almost 3 million people on this arcology and its rigs. Connectivity supervisor Ismail Baratz Zenshura. These names. Training.
Yeah.
Distills.
I mean, this real quick, not to completely break you off topic. They've got people from all over, everywhere. Like this
culture, every ethnicity, everything.
This is truly like the world of tomorrow, right? Like anyway.
Yeah. So let's see here. There are almost 3 million people on this arcology and its rigs. Connectivity supervisor Ishmael training distills his attention down to a single laser bright point. He is here with Mia, even as his brain drifts on 100 different data feeds. If you're serious about evacuating, we'll need to slot people into SMILE, as an acronym, SMILE, pods and move them as bulk freight. It's the only way to get the population out. There'll be economic damage. There'll be deaths. If this is a false alarm, it's not a false alarm, the good man says. This voice Mia didn't expect, but only because he's the newest guest at her table. David Miguel Korosek, a man who's literally never harmed a fly, who won't eat plants lest he destroy a sacred entropy pump. Poor David. He came here to make first contact with new life, the wonders that flourish not in Mia's ocean, the methane sea of Titan, but in the enormous water world that lies below the Titan's 50-kilometer ice shell. He is an ethicist. He wanted to help them do it right. Xenia crosses her arms. Her recumbent muscles make lean knots at the shoulder anchors where her bones are more than bone. How do you know? Coruscant gives her his full attention, respecting her question. He is a tall, graceful, dark-eyed man with lashes so thick he seems like he's wearing permanent eyeliner. Mia remembers something from his book about cognitive empathy. Show that you have made a model of their thought. Show that you have listened to it. He responds, Since I don't have any more information than you, how could I possibly be so certain? Yes, Xenia says impatiently, that's what I asked. He holds her gaze. Mia thinks he may have annoyed her, but also that he knows that he's done nothing wrong. The AIs who issued the evacuation order use a hammer-forged extrapolation of human morality. It is tested in trillions of simulations, under the wildest circumstances imaginable. To be sure, their moral decisions agree with human values. They're not just rationality pumps. They care. They care the way a perfect human being with the infinite compassion of all things would care. They couldn't issue an evacuation unless it was right. This is not a false alarm. So, this is an
Real quick,
interesting peek.
is Xenia? Is
Zen,
Ziana?
Xenia, I have no idea. I just
They,
picked one and went with it.
yeah, these are hard. Like these are genuinely hard names to try to come up with a pronunciation for. Um, is she non-human?
That's what it sounds like. Or she's enhanced because they refer to her. Yeah, right here. They say Finch Tiny Xenia McCaig slams her fist down with not a tenth the strength that her chimp spliced muscles could summon. So I think
So literally, like as strong as a. I mean that level of strength is.
she's biogenetically engineered is
Yeah.
what it sounds like. They have gotten to the point in this time period of human history that they are actively splicing human body parts, human genetics with that of animals to get a desired result.
Closest we've come in present day is transplanting a pig kidney.
Yeah. Granted, we don't have whatever golden age mumbo jumbo tech these guys do.
I want some of this golden age mumbo jumbo tech.
Sign me up. And they also say trying to find it here where like her shoulders is not a shoulder. Here we go. Xenia crosses her arms. Her recumbent muscles make lean knots at the shoulder anchors where her bones are more than bone. So
it's got to be like cybernetics. Like to me that's it. That goes beyond just splicing.
I think it's
the
both.
Strength of a right. It's got to be both.
Well, it's probably they had. If you're gonna do that and make the muscles that much stronger, you have to reinforce the skeletal structure in some way.
Absolutely. And we know that there are. I mean, like Anna Bray and her eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like her eyes are not human eyes; those are clearly cybernetic implants. When it shows her eyes doing where it's showing all the calculations and showing the stuff throughout the Warmind intro cinematic, I mean, she's clearly not like she's not just looking at things. Like it's she's having readouts and stuff read out in her eyes and in her eyesight. So like cybernetics is not a fully unknown thing here. Like
no,
it's definitely happening across all of humanity.
Yeah. I find this really interesting. Some of the details we get about Titan, specifically. So they're implying when they talk about this David character, he came here to make first contact with new life. The wonder, not The wonders that flourish not in Mia's ocean, the methane sea of Titan, but in the enormous water world that lies below Titan's 50-kilometer ice shell. So it sounds like it's methane ocean that's sitting on a huge like ice mantle,
And it could
and
be
below,
methane ice,
right, and then below that is
another
a
ocean.
water, like an actual like H2O ocean, or they refer
Well,
to it as
and the
water at
fact that they
least.
refer to it as water, like that's right. Like that's absolutely like there the methane ice layer, whatever that ice layer is made of, and then H2O,
Yeah.
and then moon somewhere down in there.
And I'm assuming based on the context clues, the borehole that they were talking about, that they were just the next day going to explore, is probably a drill through that ice shell into
Absolutely.
what that actual ocean is. Which we never see anything like that in game, and that's
No.
kind of interesting to think about. That's kind of double layered oceans.
Yeah. So it's interesting too, because like Pluto, our little buddy, it has white snow-capped mountains, but it's not snow in the sense that it's water. It's all methane snow. It's all frozen methane. So it's interesting to me to think that Titan, being as far out as it is, and obviously Pluto being infinitely more far out than Titan,
Yeah.
for Titan to be able to have some sort of non-frozen methane on it, and Pluto to be just completely frozen methane.
Well, if we're gonna draw a comparison to something that we have here on Earth, uh, there's Lake Superior of the Great Lakes that you reach a certain depth and it is permanently frozen. But everything above that depth is still
Really?
liquid. Yep. And that would be something that's kind of how I envision it, is something similar to that, where like you go beyond a certain depth and it is
It's just yeah.
permanently frozen by nature of how deep it is.
Sure,
Like
sunlight
there
can't
is
penetrate it, so
no,
the heat from the
yeah.
from that can't get to it. To interesting. I that's I boom, speechless. Uh,
Don't go diving in Superior. It's not a good time.
that's what I'm curious. Like, have people gone diving in Lake Superior to like experience that? Like, I feel like that's like a super cool.
Well, I think it's one of those things where if you dive to the depth that you would need to without, assistance of a machine of some sort, to get to that frozen bit, like you didn't live
Right,
to
you'd
get
freeze to
there.
death.
Uh,
Like,
but I have
be it
to imagine
of
there's been drones and things. 'Cause
temperature or of
because they've
the
discovered
crushing weight of
shipwrecks
the
and
water.
whatnot.
Right,
Um,
right.
But yeah,
That's
so
mind blowing.
so
Yeah, no, that's super cool.
yeah.
And so, another thing I wanted to point out here too. So this first entry is called the Sixth Seal.
Mhm.
Are we? Is there any significance in that? Other like in my head, I think of it as like like the sixth seal of hell has been broken type thing. Like that's what it in my head. That's what it translates to. But I don't know that has any type of correlation there.
I assume that this is a biblical reference. Specifically, and I looked this up. I do not have this memorized. Specifically, what I found was a reference to the seven seals of God.
Yeah.
Or the seven symbolic seals that secure the book or scroll that John of Patmos saw in an apocalyptic vision. The opening of the seals occurred in Revelation chapter 5 through 8 and marks the second coming and the beginning of the apocalypse. So
this is absolutely a reference to that.
Yeah.
Because the whole thing, like, we really don't have a clue what the hell they're talking about throughout this entire part one. but they're talking about an evacuation of the entirety of Titan, which I
Yes.
mean, the only time that
It's
you talk about
millions of people.
right, and the only time you talk about that level of evacuation, that this AI that literally doesn't know how to be wrong, like at the bottom when they talk about it is right. Right is capitalized, so I'm assuming there's a set of laws that govern it. It has a set of moral laws that govern its thinking, as far as an AI, which is just genuinely terrifying and dangerous. But it issues this evacuation order because it sees the end of days. Like this AI sees something bad is happening and everyone needs to get off of Titan now.
So I wanna read a little blurb of the passage relating to the sixth seal in particular, because I think there's a very specific reason why they chose that as the title.
Ooh,
And when
I'm excited.
when you read it, it's not a mind blowing moment. I'm sorry. It's
Oh,
just
damn.
it really sets the stage for the kind of catastrophe this could be.
Okay.
So this is that just that section. It says, "And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of the heavens fell unto earth." So,
Dude, that's
like earthquake blocking out the sun, the moon turning red, the stars falling, like not a good time. And that kind of imagery being portrayed to this future disaster that's being warned about on Titan, I think fits quite well considering
absolutely.
what happens.
Absolutely. Well, and I've only ever fully read the entirety of the Bible once. And if you want just a genuinely fucky read, go read Revelations. That go take a Saturday and do that. That's a whole nother topic. Anyway,
Yes. On a podcast that we're not going to be on because I don't want to deal with those people.
I'm not dealing with that shit. We're sticking to Destiny lore, and that's what we're sticking to. We can philosophize. Philosophize? Is that is
No, it's not a word.
that's like a
No.
falafel, right? Like a falafelize? Like
A falafel is deep fried garbanzo beans. So, no.
I love the accuracy there. A falafel is deep fried. Like no, no. Thank you, Myth.
You're welcome.
You're the best.
I live very close to a Mediterranean restaurant. I have a lot of experience with falafel.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, you're not you're not wrong. So that's really all we have as part of the Sixth Seal Part One. Like we know there's a huge evacuation. They have these smile pods, which I'm assuming there's some sort of cryogenic freezing or something like that. Like
when they're talking about transporting them as cargo,
as
like
freight, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep. That to me says cryogenics, which that's not anything new to the Destiny universe. Like most of the Exodus Green was in cryo when it got attacked by the darkness, which oddly enough is, I guess,
around
happening.
the same time.
It's happening about the same time that this is happening. Yeah.
Yep.
So that leads us to part 2.
Yep. So this is the Sixth Seal Part 2. Everyone has had their say. Mia puts her hand down on the cold tabletop. We are going to evacuate. Xenia, call Babatunde and get the Duker up from the borehole. I want them moored in the submarine pen in 3 hours. We'll start podding citizens in the domes, then use local blue water shipping to haul them out for orbital pickup. She likes to call the surface ships blue water, even though Titan's oceans aren't water or blue. It reminds people that she's old-fashioned. Then we evacuate the ship crews. Then we go. Ishmael opens his mouth to say something. She will remember afterward the way all the fine hairs of his immaculate beard wisped off each other in that last instant before it happened. An alert detonates in her sensorium. And when everyone else at the table, except Ishmael, flinches in surprise, Mia knows that she has just watched a history bomb detonate, a blast of irreversible change. Subhanallah, Ishmael says, which is his third language, Arabic. Wow. I guess it's not a false alarm, Mari Yamashita murmurs. The alert scrolls through Mia's mind in that hallucinatory screen space that matches but never impairs normal vision. Traveler departs Io, terraforming incomplete, accelerating toward Earth, behavior unprecedented. Sometimes Maya thinks she can feel the new Pacific arcology moving beneath her, as if the flex of the 160-meter substructure of plasteel and spin metal that anchors New Pack to the ice shell is also a flex in her sinews. Maybe, like Xenia, her bones are more than bones too. And whenever that happens, she thinks, gasoline rains from the sky here, and it is negative 180 degrees Celsius outside, and no matter how comfortable we grow, life is tenuous, human life especially. And now it's going to end. She says to her crew that what she will say to the mayor. We've got to get everyone off this city. Wherever the traveler is going, that's where it's safe. When she looks to David Korosek, who made his name as the good man by proposing humanity's best and most rigorous theory of the traveler's morality, the traveler will protect us no matter what happens. Correct? David looks back at her with the heartbreaking honesty of a child. Yes, he says. It can't do anything else.
Holy cow.
So
Like there's a level of realism there, right? Like there's just like they're all mid speech, they're all like deciding, okay, is this a real evacuation, is this a real thing? And then all of a sudden, boom, alert comes through, plays scrolls in on the essentially the same thing that I was describing with Mara's eyesight. It just scrolls there in front of them to where only they can see it, and it's all it. Basically, everyone has a miniature TV implanted in their eyes. That the traveler is booking it from Io. Like,
yeah, and the way that they describe this, I can only imagine, similarly, similar tone or feeling to when you try and think about like the dropping of the first atomic bomb, or
absolutely,
something that maybe is more relatable to people in our age group. When news of 9/11 or something
absolutely.
like that, just that
That level of like
event.
what the hell is happening. And it's funny that you mentioned specifically 9/11, because I remember I mean it's like any other event, right? Like everyone remembers where they were when JFK was shot. Like everyone remembers, like there's certain events in time in history that you will never forget where you were. Like, I mean, I could see all of it like it was yesterday type thing. And I remember I was in English class, and it was fifth period, which meant it was a blue day. Which, I mean, the fact that I can remember, like, it was a blue or gold day, right? Like it. And somebody had come by and said something, and they just told her to. They told everyone to turn the TVs on in the room, and of course we turn it on, and it's on the news channel, and literally as we turn it on, we're watching the second plane fly into the second building. And so it's this level of like, what the hell are we watching? What is going on? What is happening? Like, everyone's just trying to figure everything out as it's happening. And every once in a while, I find myself going back and watching some of those old videos, 9/11 as it happened type thing. And it's these surreal feelings, right? Like even though, like, I mean, obviously for those of us that weren't physically there, it's a totally different experience than from those that were physically there. Like that's, like that's, to them, that's even more surreal. Like that's like,
Right.
and
Right.
so this event of traveler departing Io, like it's this like everyone at that table is going to know exactly where they were at that moment.
Yeah, it's that they describe it well here. It's Mia knows she just watched a history bomb detonate, a
Yep.
blast of irreversible change. It's those moments where you know the world is now different.
Yes. Yes.
Uh,
And in this sense, the universe is different.
yes.
Like since we're
Hmm.
since we're further out than just, like they're on Titan right now. And this is happening across the entire solar system that this message is being broadcast to. I that's yeah.
I find it interesting as well here. They mentioned the this David character. Um, he proposed humanity's best and most rigorous theory of the traveler's morality. The traveler will protect us no matter what happens. I
That,
how how did we arrive at this conclusion? Like, because we know
who who the
we've
hell is
had
this
no
guy that
way.
was just like, "Hey, the traveler will protect us," and
We've
everyone's just
had
like, "Oh yeah, you the travel, yeah, the traveler will protect us, yeah, why not? Why the fuck not?" Like,
so my initial thought here, A, is like, how the fuck do you know? Like,
the speaker doesn't even know. Like, how the fuck do you know?
but the other thing, the way that I can maybe reason to myself that he came to this conclusion comes from the first chapter in the Sixth Seal Part One, where he's talking about the morality of AI. And
Yeah,
if he is under the assumption that the traveler is nothing but a giant complex alien AI, then perhaps he's come to the conclusion that that AI has only ever shown that it does things in the best interest of humanity, and so that must be its programming, and so that must be the only thing that it knows how to do.
interesting. Because
Uh,
that's one thing that we've never figured out is why the traveler came to Soul System.
right
The
now,
only thing unique about the Soul System is humanity. But the same thing could be said about, the home world of the Elixni, or even the Fundament, right? Like
so
the hive. The only thing unique to Fundament is the hive, right? Like that's
yeah, I don't subscribe to the belief that I just described that David might be under. That's my explanation of how he may have come to the reasoning that, like,
sure.
the traveler will protect us. That is a truth. Um I don't think that's accurate. I don't think the traveler is just an alien AI. I think there's a lot more than that.
Oh, absolutely.
Um However, I do think it came to the soul system. I don't think it came to the soul system for a reason. I think it stayed for a reason.
Ooh.
And what I mean by that is we have seen it on Fundament. It did not interact with the Krill as far as we know, but it was there.
Right.
Um,
It was circling as the 53rd moon?
yeah. It did
Which
interact with the
okay,
Elixir.
so for a second there, how did this traveler is just, I mean, we also talked about how it being a celestial body being like a significantly smaller celestial body than anything else out there. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
like our smallest planet in this solar system is Mercury, and we even have obviously smaller planets than that, being Nessus and Pluto, and this thing is smaller than those. And how is this thing a moon of another world?
Well, there's a lot of ambiguity there. We don't know much of a that, like, maybe it just moon in the fact that it orbited,
Oh, okay.
or it
I
could have had a very close orbit to make it, appear large in the sky, but not, or large-ish
oh
in the sky, but not necessarily of the size of a moon as we know it.
sure.
Um, or it could just be that, gameplay, it's a fantasy universe. The traveler can change its size because it needs to. Uh,
Hey, No, sir. We are not approaching any of this lore with any type of because video game mumbo jumbo.
Because video game.
This is a scientific podcast. Damn it!
Scientific fun.
I can't even say that with a straight face.
But
We approach everything here with science and facts.
Let's go back to my original point. I don't think the Traveler sought the Sol system out in particular. I think it's been hopping systems searching for a race that fit the bill that humanity did.
Sure.
Which is the ability not just use the light as a tool, but to actually have the light inhabit them.
Yeah. Yep.
Because the Elixni, for all their great invention and light through the Splicer gauntlets and their technology of the time, were still very much mortal. They were not quote unquote blessed with the light in the way that we are.
Right.
And I think the Traveler knows that it essentially needs an immortal army to stand against the swarms of those allied to the dark.
Right. Well, and because those allied to the dark are inherently immortal, like that they when we think of like the hive, like we can't truly kill a hive unless if it's in their own ascendant plane, right? Like we
can't truly kill an ascendant hive.
Ascendant hive. That's a better way, because we kill hive all the time. I killed 30 acolytes.
Heads off Thrall, yeah.
Right. That's a no-brainer. Haha, get it? Pop the heads off. And Zora's gone again.
And Zora's gone again.
So yes.
So the next chapter in this book is called The 10th Avatar, which, surprise, surprise, is another Apocalypse reference.
Yep.
And say this time to a Hindu god, which also goes to show, I think, maybe some of the like cultural influences happening on Titan.
Absolutely. That's where I think of like this is I don't want to say the true future of humanity, but this is to me humanity looking at itself, or even acting itself as acting as a bigger, what would you describe it as? Like a greater than the sum of its parts type thing?
I'm going to use a very elementary term here. And this is something that was pointed out to me actually in elementary school that always stuck with me. So we always heard America referred to as the melting pot.
Right.
It's where all these different cultures and people came to and mixed together, and the term was meant in a positive light.
Right.
And I had a teacher at the time that pointed out that that's melting pot assumes that everything reaches a point of conformity, that everything loses its identity to become all the same thing.
Ooh.
And so they argued that the more accurate term, as silly as it sounds, is that America, in this case, the Destiny world, is just a giant fruit salad.
Yeah.
Where everything still has its own identity, but it all has to coexist and mix together and bump into each other and deal with being part of a whole, but they do not lose who they themselves are. And I feel like this is a very good representation of that.
Yeah. And there's tomatoes in this fruit salad, right?
It's a fruit. I mean, I won't judge.
there pumpkins in this fruit salad too? Is,
Why the hell not?
is, is there strawberries in this fruit salad?
They are a fruit. They're just a weird fruit. So you can be the strawberries, or
I'll be the strawberry. You can be the tomato to my peppers. I can't even. I can't even. So the 10th avatar.
The 10th avatar. 10th avatar seems to refer to the 10th avatar Kalki, which is described in the Hindu faith as riding a white horse with a sword drawn and blazing like a comet, appearing at the end of the present epoch.
So very much like the equivalency of the like a Four Horsemen of the Apocalypse type thing.
That's my very uneducated in Hinduism take. Yeah.
Sure.
But the 10th avatar. The military dropships pierce the nitrogen clouds like bullets, plasma thick trick shots through the evacuation fleet swarming over Titan. By the time Ishida, I'm not going to try that one.
I don't blame you.
But yeah, by the time Ishida has calmed down the panic in traffic control, there's nothing left for Mia to do except pace around the edge of her office in irritation and fire civil airspace protests at the intruders. They reply in terse code. Her office copies the military messages straight to her sensorium. New pack, this is Crown 6 on a 00 for your dorsal airlock. Do not deviate your traffic. Send a civilian liaison to the lock. Over. Heck darned military trying to just justify their existence, Mia grumbles. She's been pathologically unable to swear since her great-grandkids. The presence of a famous ethicist at her side doesn't loosen her up. You're right, Korosek paces with her at the safe 3 steps inside her turn. He seems like a man comfortable at any distance. If they just came into the traffic pattern like any other ship, they would be admitting that their precision and urgency are unnecessary. So, this. Some American you are, Mia teases. David comes from the North American Empire, Earth's biggest voluntary retro-nationalist republic, full of people who love military pageantry and regular aerospace displays. Ouch. He smiles with those huge, laughing, haunted eyes. I wasn't always the good man, you know. Do you mind when people call you that? Thank you for asking. I hate it. But I like the idea that people can believe in a good person. If they believe in one, they can believe in more. His laugh reaches more than his eyes this time, soft and confident. You would never know he was thinking constantly and acutely about the idea of right and how he could satisfy it. May I ask you a favor? Of course. I want to be with you when you meet the soldiers. She looked at him in surprise. You want to liaise with the military? No offense, David, but you seem like a rough fit. I knew her. Who? The woman on the radio, Crown 6. 2 centuries of practice tell me there's heartbreak behind that voice. Before she was uploaded. Uploaded? She's an exo now. A troubleshooter for Soul Second? Well, Mia says, that'll be a weird read. The dropships come down so fast, Mia is sure they'll crash, plunge into the methane sea, and sink like uranium bricks. She watches bicortical video as they make their blindingly bright suicide burns, flesh-peeling 30G deaccelerations into an arrogantly precise hover 5 meters above the archive dome. Dark metal figures leap from the dropships, naked in Titan's flash freeze cold and untroubled by 1.6 atmospheres of pressure. A drizzle of gasoline rain slicks their alloy skin. They move with inhuman efficiency. I don't believe it. Mia shakes her head at the absurdity of the universe. Like we need transhuman infantry to evacuate a city. She heads for the door and elevator, but Ziana McCaig, Ishmael, and Mare are blocking the way. I know, Mia says, holding up her hands. You refuse to leave. You're staying here with me. You want to save everything you can. Xenia, who secretly wanted to impress her, fallen. Dear Maori's diver instinct of never leaving your buddy puffs him up with pride. Puffs up with pride. She trusts him. Ishmael makes a small, satisfied sound, as if his prediction just came true. He probably just won a bet with Xenia. Come on, Maya hugs her wayward children. Come here, you awful kid. I knew you wouldn't leave because I'm not going to leave either. I want you all to go to the crisis command and get your staff set up. Ishmael, let's assume we're going to lose the satellite. Get all the weather forecasts you can. Titan's surface and circum-Saturn space. Maori, try to figure out what exactly is about to hit us. Xenia, check on the Duker, then help Ishmael switch everything you can to local management. On the way to the dorsal airlock, Mia flicks through camera feeds, statistics, telemetry, watching over the evacuation effort. Not so long ago, a few million frightened people would have been an administrator's worst nightmare, but not these days. Titan's citizens have grown up with game theory and applied community ethics. It's as unthinkable to beg for a priority evacuation as it would be to ask for an old man's seat on the tram. The families of rig workers and shipping tycoons wait side by side for their tickets to be called, for their bodies to be processed into cold sleep pods and loaded by the thousands. All equally silent, equally delicate, equally helpless. Mia gets a chill. She doesn't know why she's so certain that it's over now, this calm, enlightened goodness, this collective decency. But she is. You're scared? David asks quietly. Not scared for myself. For everything. For what we've built. We built it well, David assures her. This is when we'll be our best. Whew.
Very, very much that surreal.
Yeah.
Like it in my head, I can see these very arrogant, militaristic ships just coming balls to the walls.
Screaming from the atmosphere. Yeah.
So there's a there's a thing called a tactical takeoff and a tactical landing, and I have been, what would you call that, privy to this. I was in a C-130, which is a cargo ship or a cargo plane used by the Army and Air Force and Marines and pretty much all military. But it has four prop engines, so four propeller engines, and it typically can hold. It's big enough that you could park a couple of Humvees inside of it, right? Like you could comfortably strap down like 4 or 5 Humvees. Not quite big enough that you could put like a whole Chinook in there, but big enough to fit some Humvees in there. And this is what we use to travel from fob to fob in Iraq. And if there's ever a time where we're coming into a hot zone or out of a hot zone, they do one of these tactical takeoffs or tactical landings. And when you fly commercial airlines, you have this nice smooth transition from 0 feet to 18,000 feet. And it takes a good hot second to get all the way up to 18,000 feet. A tactical takeoff, you go from 0 feet to 30,000 feet in 3 seconds. It is literally straight up in a non-pressurized airplane. And it fucking sucks. The opposite of that is also true. It's called a tactical landing. And you go from 30,000 feet to 0 feet in 3 seconds. And your stomach ends up in your throat, as does all of your blood. And it is not very fun at all. But I could just imagine that. That these ships just coming in, just like, I mean, just balls to the wall, and obviously whatever's jumping out of them, I'm assuming are exos.
Yeah, I think it has to be exos. They're
There's
talking
no
about
way.
metallic skin, and they're jumping out. They say naked. I don't know if they just mean without protection, in the middle of like this negative 180-degree methane gasoline rain environment.
In 1.6 atmospheres.
1.6 atmospheres.
So the normal pressure of Earth's atmosphere is 15 pounds per square inch, correct?
Sure, I'd have to look it up.
One
AU.
1 AU. Yes. Yeah. All right, smart ass. All right. You see what I mean when we start talking physics? You can't do it. Nobody can do it. They've always got a fucking answer for everything. And it's bullshit, but it's the correct answer, and it drives you up the wall. 1 AU. Fuck you.
I'm pretty sure
that's what I
AU
have
is
to say to
literally
you.
atmospheric unit. So
Yeah, smart ass.
so I looked it up. Yeah, 14.7 pounds per square inch. So 15.
So
Yeah.
15 psi is Earth's atmosphere. So this is 1.6 times that. So think of it as like being like underwater type thing, right? Like the further you go underwater, the pressure of the water
Pressure builds. Yeah.
pressure builds the further down you go, and this is 1.6 times the normal Earth atmosphere. So you would not be able to move as efficiently as you do I can't say efficiently because that's not the right term, but you wouldn't be able to move as easily as you could on Earth, on Titan, right? Like Titan is very much, it would take you a lot more physicality, a lot more strength and time and energy to move, whereas these things are literally just like it's like ants pouring out of a ant hill, right? Like they're just hauling balls across the dome of the arcology.
And to put it in perspective, in a way that might be a little easier to try and understand, if you were 180 pounds, if you weighed 180 pounds on Earth, on Titan you would be 288 pounds.
Yeah.
So it's not that clearly there are people on Earth that weigh 280 plus and they still move around and do within reason.
But then on Titan would be like 400 something.
Right. And exos especially are metal. So
right.
Exos coming in are probably like 400 or 500 pounds.
Easily.
And so, add on to that, and even with that addition, they're moving like there's no problem.
Yeah.
If an EXO is 500 pounds on Titan, 500 pounds on Earth, on Titan they're 800. So they're like almost half a ton.
Yeah.
And they're unfazed,
moving around like it's nothing.
Yeah.
Like it's a day in the rain. But this is like throughout this entire thing, like shit is hitting the fan. Like this is happening so fast. Like this, in some of the other lore books that we've looked at, there's been like days in between entries. This is like minutes.
Is all boom, boom, boom
between entries. Like we just got through entry number 3, and this can't be more than half an hour from the very beginning of the entry of the evacuation order has been
they
issued.
Talked about, hey, we need to evacuate. They did sounds like a vote of some sort, and now they're doing the evacuation immediately after the results of that vote, and these ships come screaming down out of the sky full of military exo.
I do love that we kind of have a peek into the what would you call it, the golden age world, because she talks about the North American Empire,
Yeah,
Earth's
yeah.
biggest
Have a little
voluntary retro-naturalist republic, full of
retro
people who love
Republic.
military pageantry and muscular aerospace displays.
So what that tells me is that in however many hundreds of years of golden age tech, America hasn't changed much.
Hasn't changed one GD bit. We're still a bunch of arrogant assholes.
Well, so at least we know we're good at it.
At least, yeah, we found something we're good at and we stick to it.
We stuck to it.
But yeah, so and then each of these department heads are like obviously like this whole thing with Titan has all just been kind of like one giant experiment, right? Like this,
Yeah.
it's there was never a reason to terraform Titan. There was never a reason for anything to be there. They just happen to know that there's an ice shelf and then there's stuff underneath it, and that they want to go play in it, and that's just the human curiosity, right? Like that's the
Just the need for exploration.
Yep, the what is the unknown? How do I get to the unknown? And and each one of these department heads have different things that they're in charge of, and so she's like, issuing orders. Hey, you go take care of your stuff. Get that stuff switched over to local. You'd go over here, make sure these guys are doing their things, make sure all the gear is set up, get it all into the sub pins in 3 hours. Like I want everything, pop, 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 pop. Let's go. Basically save as much as you can. Let's get the hell out of here. So
that leads us into the next entry here, which is titled Faces Like Shields. And this is not a direct apocalypse reference like the other three. However, I see this more as a symbolic reference to exos being unreadable. They don't have body language like a normal, flesh and blood human would.
They don't have skin. They don't have like the eye twitches, the quirks of a smile, or
They are by nature of what they are, they a very guarded individual to try and have a discussion with. Is kind of how I read into it. So and the exo take a front role for this card. So it goes. Mia Vanderven is old. Change comes faster these days, and you live to see more of it. Changes like Ishmael being allowed to pray not in the real direction of Mecca, but in the direction Mecca would be if it were transposed from Earth to Titan. Changes like the rise and fall and rise again of the Bray cult of personality, like the new worlds the traveler opens up to humanity, and changes like the woman who calls herself Crown 6. She has the compact endomorphic build of someone's mom, a shape that would be disarmingly ordinary if it were not rearmed by glowing eyes, empty sunken cheeks, a thickly armored jaw, and a bare scalp studded with needled sensors. The petrol stink of Titan's atmosphere washes off her, mingled with the clean, astringent bite of airlock spray. Like all exos, she was once a person, someone who gave up her flesh for the tenuous immortality of a war body. Mia, unfairly, thinks she looks like an angry mannequin. Welcome to New Pacific Arcology, Mia says. Far beneath them, the lights of the residential stacks dim and flicker out as people report to their potting stations. Information kiosks flare up in distant blue, flashing directions to the lost. A vacuum robot scurries along the catwalk behind them. Administrator Vanderveen, the woman says with careful consideration, thank you for your welcome. She turns back to collect some item of equipment. An etiquette flash blinks in the air beside her, totally unpersonalized, is just the standard warning against substrate chauvinism. Hi, Morgan, David Korosek says with a softness Mia has never heard before, a softness not meant for her ears. Are you happier? It's as if he's waited a long, long time to ask that. Crown 6 looks up in very human surprise. David, she says guardedly, tell me you're not still an ethicist? Sorry, Morgan. Still me. Then I'm not speaking to you, the Exo says and turns to Mia. Administrator Vanderveen, I'm here under Sol Second's special security protocol for extreme crisis. I must ask for your compliance and all possible assistance with our mission. An eight-legged crate walks out of the airlock behind her, shepherded by two more silent Exos. The beast of burden prefers body armor and firearms, not just bliss rifles or restraint spiders, but actual lethal bullet-shooting guns. No, Mia says with more heat than she intends, but not more than she feels. I won't allow you inside with deadly weapons. This is a legally autonomous settlement chartered under. Morgan points a bladed hand at her. The symbolic gesture of violence alone is shocking enough to cut Mia's sentence short. Administrator Vanderveen, there is a car-high white emergency in effect. As an AI comm operative, I have the right to use force where and how I see fit. So if you don't get me where I need to go and help me remove any obstacle to my goal, I will realign you with my mission. She cocks her head. It's very human. Am I clear? Are you threatening to shoot me? Mia stares at the Exo woman in disbelief. She hasn't seen a gun in nearly 50 years, and now they are not only coming into her habitat, they're also pointed at her. I won't shoot you. The needles of Morgan's scalp glitter, but I will tell you that I could if I found it necessary. This is wrong, David barks. I know you, Morgan. Believe in sacrosanct human will and the primacy of informed individual agents and the need for powerful actors to obtain consent. The person you knew might have time for this conversation, Morgan says with vicious remove. The pronoun dance suggests shared personal history that Mia has no business asking or caring about. I don't. Administrator, my team will now proceed to Shannis Pell's lab to secure our objective. If you're with me, maybe it gets done faster. If not, maybe it gets done messier. Your choice. Of course. Of course, it's about Shannis Pell. Who else? A silent alarm throbs in Mia's sensorium, like a snake coiling around her wrist. Down in the residential blocks, one of her citizens has lifted one too many boxes and manifested pre-symptoms of a heart attack. EMTs are on the way, so it probably won't be the day's first death. Probably. Life burns so easily. It's her job to stand up to those who forget that. I'll escort you to the lab, she says. May I assume that you're interested in containing some data at the Pell Lab? Should I close our airspace? We are in the middle of "You'll do nothing," Morgan says. Confidently, but incorrectly. I'm killing all of your satellite uplinks except for text and basic flight telemetry. Who ordered this? Mia demands. On what grounds can Solsec impose some high-handed protocol on my arcology? Morgan does not make the obvious correction. Not who ordered this, but what.
Wow.
Whew. So,
I mean, there's a lot in like, I mean, these entries are happening rapid fire. Like this can't be but more than 20 minutes later after the next one. But car hair white. That's Rasputin.
yes. And that's what she means at the end there, I think, with the not who ordered this, but what.
That's Rasputin. That is absolutely 100% Rasputin issuing that order saying, everyone, everything
has been deemed important enough by Rasputin to have a team make a pit stop and grab it.
And not just make a pit stop and grab it, take it by any means necessary.
Yes.
Like this exo is like and so this is where it intrigues me about the whole, what subroutines are actually happening inside of an exo, right? Like that, like were all these exos just boom activated, with this single order, and they all just move with military like precision and deadly force, that they just come in and they're like, this is what's happening. You're either with us or you're part of the problem. Get out of the way. And honestly, it's kind of terrifying, right?
Yeah. So I'm gonna make an admission here. I did not do all that detailed of research on these entries.
You
So
poo on you.
I may have missed this. Did they discuss in these entries who Shanice Pell is and what her research is?
Not yet.
Okay, but it does come up later.
I don't know. I again, you and I are kind of on the same page on this one.
Okay. Well, then I'm just going to say it now, and if it comes up later, then spoilers. But
there you go.
So the reason why Shanice Pell is such a notable figure, and why I imagine Rasputin would really want her data at all costs, she worked for both the Ishtar Collective and the Clovis Bray Corporation before going to Titan as kind of an independent research. And
those two things alone that's everything.
She was a
right?
very
Like,
smart person.
That's I mean, we're talking the Ishtar Collective being what would you call, what would you consider that, the humanity's greatest research facility? I don't know much about the Ishtar Collective other than it was on Venus and it's now kind of in the hands of the Vex.
Yeah, it was a what to even equate.
I've always thought of it as like a research facility / university / library of everything that humanity knows about the Vex.
Well, it is not just Vex.
It isn't.
That's the thing. So the Ishtar Collective was an organization dedicated to scientific advancement of humanity. Period. Now, because notable figures of the Ishtar Collective came in contact with and continued to study Vex, such as Maya Sundaresh,
right,
and Dr. Shim,
yep.
It all of our entries relating to it are usually relating to one of these notable figures who were dealing with the Vex. But the Ishtar Collective in and of itself, as far as I can find and as far as I remember, was not dedicated to study of the Vex by any means. It was dedicated to furthering scientific advancement in general.
So I'm curious if those 2 points just so happen to coincide, or if it's like this facility is dedicated to the scientific advancement of humanity, or just the advancement of science, and because of the advanced nature of the Vex, they are a central portion of this.
Well, I don't know that it's fair to say they're a central portion of the Ishtar Collective as a whole. I think it's just our entries, our introductions to members of the collective are exclusively through Vex research.
Okay,
so it kind of skews things a little bit.
Sure, it's like we're seeing what we want to see because this is what we're looking for.
Right. It would be like to do a real world example. If you only ever talked to people that went to went to a university, went to University of Michigan, just because it's close to home. And the only people you ever talked to that graduated with law degree, and you knowing nothing else about the place went, oh, that must be a law school. Where in reality, like that is a part of a much larger organization.
Okay, that makes sense.
So, but all that's to say, Shanice Pell worked there as well as Clovis Bray's facility before she went on independent research. her independent research at Titan was interstellar probes. Her probe, the very first probe or the very first prototype probe that she got to fire off into the interstellar space towards the outskirts of our solar system is the probe that picked up the anomaly that warned the Sol system about the darkness.
Holy shit.
She is the one that
So
actually
she could
saw.
so she could have known about the darkness long before this alert happened, long before even the traveler picked up and booked it.
Yes. By all accounts, she did know. Because if we go back
Why
to,
else would a military force be coming to her doorstep to take whatever they want by force?
yeah, so she discovered this anomaly, and then as soon as she realized that it was something moving towards the Sol system, that there was something in with intent moving towards the Sol system, uh, she sent that information immediately to every open receiver in the Sol system. Uh,
Holy cow.
so, needless to say, Rasputin was monitoring at least one of them
Easily.
and understood what was being sent and classified it as, having as much information as possible about the as the highest priority, and that
Car hair white. The absolute top priority, get your asses home.
so that lends a lot of reasoning behind why Rasputin, who would be in charge at this point, of the entire military force of the Sol system.
Well, and we talked about this too.
Mhm.
Like Clovis Bray, does Clovis Bray exist? Like, does the military as a whole not exist? I mean, she talks about she hasn't even seen a gun in 50 years.
Right, and the first
And
thing she finds is an exo, and
right,
they refer to them as what even in this entry she referred to them as a someone who gave up their flesh for the tenuous immortality of a war body.
of a war body.
So I think the exos are the military,
I think
essentially.
they are. I 100% think that Exos were maybe not necessarily designed from the ground up as a military force, but are actively the military force of the Sol system, directly under Clovis Bray. And now this
Directly
is an
under
interesting.
Rasputin.
Right. Like as a subroutine, directly connect. Man, that's interesting to me.
Yeah, it's weird because we can't attribute the decisions being made about these sacrifices being made. Like normally in present day, you attribute that to a group of people within the government, general. Those are decisions being made by people about what risk versus reward of certain operations.
Absolutely.
And all of those same calculations are technically happening, but they're happening in split second time in the mind of a sentient computer.
Right.
And that computer, Rasputin in this case, is trying to make and I heard someone refer to it this way: he's not trying to make the decisions that will guarantee humanity victory. He's trying to make the decisions that will guarantee humanity's survival, even if it's in a tiny amount.
And I think that's a good distinction to make too. Is the Warmind Rasputin does not look at it as a win or lose situation. It's never been about a victory or a loss or defeat or a win. It's about survival. It's about continuing on no matter what. and that's where that's that because I mean obviously we've seen that car hair white in many different places, um, and that being the get your ass back to Earth command basically, and so it's like for Rasputin to issue that and that to me is like that okay everything that needs to survive in order for humanity to survive this is what needs to happen and so it has activated all those all that's where I'm curious as to how much of a subroutine in the Exo's programming, because as much as they're human consciousness inside a robotic body, there's still got to be some sort of
Oh, Bray put backdoors in there.
right, like with how arrogant this guy was, and not just arrogant, like how megalomaniac this guy was,
Yeah.
like there's no way that there wasn't something there, and then for him to also I mean, the war mind is Braytech, right? Like it's
yeah,
that's all Braytech technology. So there's no way he doesn't have a backdoor into that or a finger in that or whatever. And there's no way he doesn't have those two connected, right? Like that's just part of what he is. That's part of how he sees humanity is another way of survival. And so the Exos to him is the another way to survival, but that just so happen can be programmed with a subroutine to be activated as a military force.
Yep. And
Which is interesting in this entry too about how like David is seeing this woman as Morgan and is actively talking to her as Morgan, and she has a little bit of a humanness to her, but she's still very much a robot. And I'm curious if she's not all there.
well, I don't know if it's that she's not all there. Although that could be part of it. The other thing I find interesting is her name change throughout
Yeah.
this lore card, this lore book. And I wonder if that's indicative of like a not a personality switch per se, but a like military mode under direction versus like
Ooh.
human themselves in the
Yeah.
exo body.
Like if we were to take it from the point of like Banshee, right? Like
Yeah.
Banshee is Clovis.
Yep.
But Banshee is Banshee. You know what I mean? Like there's as much as Clovis's personality exists within Banshee and Banshee's body is the exo body of the Clovis mind, it's still not 100% Clovis, right? Like there's still like that 1% that's Banshee, and eventually that portion is what wins out.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm curious how many exos have that level of what would you call that multiple personality disorder?
Well, it's kind of an odd one because that would imply that it stems from a psychological disorder.
Yeah.
And I don't know that that's the case. It is kind of working as designed.
Okay, yeah, no, working as intended.
If
No, I
we
see.
look at it from Bray's point of
From
view, when
Bray's
he created
yeah.
it, that was what
that's exactly what he wanted.
How it should be doing.
Yeah, that's working as intended. Interesting.
But he wouldn't have cared about the impact on the people.
No, not
deal
at all.
with that, but to him it would be a huge success.
Right, like and we see that throughout his journals too, of like, where they're like experimenting with a guy, and the guy's like, "Hey, I can't breathe," and they just keep talking like nothing's happening.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, "Oh, well, that sucks. He's gonna die." Oh well, another one for the death bucket. We'll get him rebooted later. Like to him, this is all just how do I make humanity survive? How do I make humanity immortal?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's mind blowing to see it in full swing here, to see it in just straight up like. I mean, and it was also interesting to me to see that real quick alarm. Like she's in the middle of thinking through stuff. Maya's in the middle of thinking through stuff, and then there's that alarm of like, oh, hey, somebody lifted too many boxes and is starting to get the pre-symptoms of a heart attack.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, the fact that we have spliced humans, it shouldn't amaze me the level of instantaneous medical emergencies being just kind of like an everyday life thing,
Right.
and just being taken care of just in an instant. So but even then, she says it probably won't be the day's first death. So
Well,
I mean, she already sees it as a death, possibly.
I think she was referencing that as a like, will that person's going to get medical attention, so they're saved. So like they won't be the day's first death.
Okay.
Implying that there will be others that may be, but that like this person is going to be saved from their most immediate crisis at least.
Sure. Interesting. I didn't even think of it from that perspective, but yeah, no, that's wow.
So the next entry here goes back to the good old apocalyptic references. Kalki's burning sword, which was the name of the Hindu god, as the 10th.
So this is the 10th Avatar's weapon. Like this is
is referenced as riding a white horse with a burning sword drawn. So this is I view this as like this is the point where everything is starting to truly come apart.
Yeah.
But
this is the beginning of the beginning of the end, kind of like albeit it's only been like maybe an hour and a half since the first alert came, and now we're here, and it's like shit's moving at 100 miles an hour. Like it's getting real.
Okay, so this one reads as follows. The beam kisses the rising shuttle and cuts through it like a wire through a block of butter, as if the ship and everyone inside were thin as the hydrocarbon sleet. Thunder booms louder than Earth's through heavy nitromethane air. Mia watches the debris strike the smooth black ocean and sink. She can't breathe. There's something like a whittled mulberry branch stuck in her throat. Do you realize this is your fault? Morgan 2 groans, inviting no dispute about whether it is in fact Maya Vandervine's fault. Yes, in a complicated way, but rather asking her if she accepts it. Do you see, Mia? Do you see how you killed them? It was a good plan, she'd thought. Smuggling Shannis Pell out of the evacuation ships was the right thing to do, because it put Shannis Pell's personal autonomy above the need of enigmatic emergency protocol, because it gave Shannis a choice about what to do with her data instead of yielding that choice to Morgan and her exos. Why? David Korosek whispers. Morgan, you murdered all of those people. Why? It should have worked. Maya never betrayed herself to the Exo's electronic warfare with a telltale signal. She didn't warn Pell with a crude mechanical sign like a blinking light or a gushing faucet that a watching AI might detect. She'd hid her alarm in the social chaos of the Arcology's evacuation. Simply by failing to renew a hold order, she allowed one of her security frames to detain a Clovis Bray executive in Dome 2. The Clovis corporate embassy sent a team to unsnarl the situation, and that unexpected sortie triggered Shannis Pell's Sentinel programs and kicked off her Red Alert evacuation protocol. She was already evacuating, just like everyone else, but now she believed, correctly, that someone was after her. Shannis and her lab ran before Morgan's exos could reach them. Ran with the data Morgan came to silence. The probe. This must be about the Pell Deep Space probe. That demonstration of self-sufficiency that caused such vicious, quiet controversy. What did it find? When Morgan 2's network senses warned her of Pell's flight, Maya thought she'd won, saved the radically self-sufficient scientist from the big bad war mind and its paranoid goons. But Morgan 2 had just covered her glowing eyes. Administrator, didn't you understand that I was the humane option? Didn't you think? And down from the sky, swift and stealthy as the warsat that fired it, came the invisible discharge of an X-ray laser to light the shuttle's propellant like a lantern. The beam path was hot white, straight as poured silver, collapsing instantly. A crash of pure-tone thunder as the tunnel of burnt air closes in on itself, and the shuttle opening like a ghastly blossom, the shape of a thing going upward very quickly, no longer in one piece. Oh no, Mia had gasped, not understanding at first. Was it an accident? Had the phantom disaster finally arrived on Titan and struck its first blow? This was the age of life, and governments did not ever use force against human beings. There were always alternatives, every soul sacred, every evil treatable. Then she understood what the war mind had done.
Holy shit.
So Rasputin shot down a civilian evacuation ship.
Like, literally shot it out of the sky.
So
like,
what
activated a war sat and just said, nope. All because of one person being on that ship.
Of Pell and her data. And what I had originally believed to be a reconnaissance and recovery mission, a mission where Rasputin may have sent the XO to collect the data of that probe to know more about the enemy.
I think it was sent to destroy.
It seems absolutely. This was a cover up, essentially.
This was absolutely a cover up.
Now the question then becomes why?
Right. Like what purpose behind? So because the whole thing, right? Like the Clovis, the alarm went off. She failed to renew a hold order, which allowed this thing to go mess with this Clovis Bray executive in Dome 2. That one sent a team to unsnarl the situation, which then triggered another. So all of this was just like a subroutine underneath a subroutine underneath a subroutine. So that way, none of it could be traced back to Mia or anything. But somewhere he knows that Shanice's data and everything about her is high priority, and that something was coming for her and something was after her, and so that triggered her to be like, okay, time to evacuate.
So my theory, and I think this will be backed up a little bit as we go through the rest of the lore. My theory is that Rasputin, being the super powerful, I say computer, but that seems too simplistic. Being the thing that he is. Even
saying AI seems too simplistic.
So Rasputin being whatever the hell Rasputin is, a sentient machine, intercepted her data, understood her data, analyzed her data, and came to the conclusion already that winning was never an option.
Right.
Rasputin has at this point, in my opinion, already given up and is purely in the what event. If I assume all humans are already dead, what events can I do to make sure that number of 100% becomes 99%?
That's mind-boggling. That's genuinely mind-boggling. And there's a movie that Margie and I most recently watched that has a very similar thing happen in it. I can't remember the name of the movie, but it's got George Clooney in it, and he's like the father of this girl, and there's like an alter. Do you remember the name of the movie, Sweets? The one with George Clooney in it that had like they had the little pins, and it made them shift into the other world. And Tomorrowland.
Tomorrowland.
Tomorrowland. Yep.
World, Tomorrowland.
Yep.
Yeah.
Tomorrow World, Tomorrowland. where it says 100%, right?
Mhm.
That humanity is doomed, but that as soon as this girl comes in contact with it or does something, it goes to like 99.9%.
Yeah.
And it's like this, like it moved. Did you see it moved? It's no longer 100. Like that thing right there. Like the fact that like Rasputin has already made that decision and is now trying to recalculate and figure out what event to make that number click down, right?
And
Because as long as it's not 100%, then there's a survival,
there's somebody surviving
some
somewhere.
form of survival.
Uh,
And his answer is to prevent whatever this information that this probe and all the research and everything to ever come into the light of day.
yeah, because for one reason or another, that is absolutely integral to
The failure of humanity.
to the failure of humanity, to having there be somebody survive. That
Yep.
thing needs to not exist.
And if that thing does exist, the ticker is sitting at 100%.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's mind blowing. And so this is entirely a false flag operation, right? Like this is all like, hey, we're here to da 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 da, but they show
Yeah.
up like, so not to be the obvious, like, okay, come the fuck on. Guns haven't been seen in 50 years, and the first thing that shows up is a bunch of people with guns, and you're thinking they're just gonna walk out the front door.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
come
No.
on. Somewhere in your minds, you got to be like, okay, they're here to kill all of us. Like, that's got to be somewhere in your mind, right? Like, I find it very odd that she's like, okay, I'll escort you there, but then in the same thing, to see this entire series of subroutines happen to force Shannis into evacuation, even Maya knows that it's not entirely it's not it's how would you put that? It's not entirely out of thought, out of perspective that a military force is coming to kill everyone in a specific part that dealt with that deep space probe because of what it found and the information that goes along with it.
Yeah. Like there was enough forethought to have a way and a system warning Pell
Yes,
that somebody's coming for you.
absolutely, absolutely. And then the
So
war mind says, "Nope."
yeah, Warmind says, "I'm a Warmind. I do what I want."
I do what I want. That's
Until the darkness bitch slaps him. So we see the aftermath of this in the next entry, Kalki's Burning Sword Part 2, which reads as follows. Now she kneels, trembling, on the carpet outside Pell's abandoned lab, as Morgan too shouts in grief and rage. I didn't want this, do you understand? I came here so she wouldn't have to die. Then you should have told me, Mia screams, and that rod shoved down her throat feels like it's punched through her heart. Would you have believed me? Now Morgan's voice is machine flat. I showed you our weapons. I told you we were prepared to kill. But this, an entire shuttle? All those people. Those poor, poor people. I know what this means, David pronounces. He's gotten down to his knees beside Mia, but he won't reach out, won't touch without consent. A war mind fired that weapon. War minds don't take human life, unless they're in the Twilight exigent moral territory. What does that mean? Mia demands, wanting, needing some kind of sense. It means, Morgan too says mercilessly, that all human beings are assumed dead without protective action. The war minds are now acting to maximize survival, not minimize. Death is cheap. The garden's on fire. It's a race to save whatever we can. That's not sense. Maya can't make sense of that. What if they're wrong? David gets to his feet. Morgan, they just murdered a ship full of innocent people. Data. Is the secret worth it? What if they're wrong? They can't be wrong. They're too smart. Oh, no, you don't. You haven't forgotten that much. He comes at Morgan, fearless in his authority for all his physical power. You know intelligence is semi-orthogonal to morality. The war minds obey human stricture because we built them to live in our tiny patch of the moral landscape. Goodness is not an inevitable. They can be smart without being right. Morgan II's shoulders flexed in a shrug as cold and silent as the light on Titan. Most of the sun's light does not survive to reach this place. What do you want from me, David? He is almost comically taller than her. I want to see the data. There are still copies here, aren't there? In the Pell Lab, I want to know for certain it had to be contained. It's too dangerous. It came from inside the... Morgan cuts herself off with very human haste. It's too risky. You know what I am. Now he is begging her. You know what I... Studying human morality, rendering it elegant and explicit and complete so that we can explain ourselves to a new life that we may meet. You know I can be sure. Please, for the sake of our... Mia does not get to hear the rest of this conversation because a message explodes into her sensorum with as much demanding totality. Boss, Ishmael shouts, we're accelerating. What? Mia conjures up telemetry from Titan's satellite halo. What's accelerating? She calls for radar data, a map of Titan's service, and then she sees it. Her moon is squashing. Titan is deforming from a spheroid into an egg. Something out there is pulling on Titan. A hand with a force greater than Saturn's entire mass, and the moon is answering the only way it can, by bulging outward. Already 15 meters, still growing. The pull will cause strain, tremors, tides, and when that pull lets go, there will be a wave to make Zeusundra and Atrahasis and Noah and Manu and Dicolin cower in fear. Bergelmir might have navigated a deluge of blood, but not even he sail on liquid method, nor reckon with the apocalyptic tidal forces of a second ocean, 14 times as vast as Earth's oceans combined, buried 15 kilometers beneath the surface.
Wow. So something is pulling on Titan.
Something is pulling on Titan. So I think first part, this whole conversation, essentially the conversation we just had, about like, why would Rasputin do this?
The morality behind it, like
behind it,
that Twilight exigent. We've seen that before too.
Yep.
When we've looked at Warmind stuff, and it's all about exactly what they said. The war minds are now acting to maximize survival. And it's interesting here that they say the war minds, plural.
Right? Yeah.
When we know now, like there was Charlemagne, but Charlemagne was just like a satellite of Rasputin. Like Rasputin is the only war mind.
Technically, at the time of the writing of this lore, D2 Year 1, they had not maybe decided how they were going to deal with the war minds.
It'd be interesting if they go through and they're like, oh, and just erase the S everywhere.
Just get rid of it everywhere.
So the war minds are now acting to maximize survival, not minimize harm. That is very much that's what we just talked about. Yeah. That's so much, and even Mia can't. She's like that. There's no sense in that. Like that. Like what if they're wrong? What is this level of secret that needs to be contained? Like why is it so bad that if it gets out, it guarantees the end of humanity? It's mind blowing.
It is.
and then for all of this to be happening, and in the middle of it to be like, oh shit, hey, Titan's doing something.
Yeah, the I say planet, not planet. The entire moon, the entire celestial body is changing shape because something
Fif-
out there
15
has
meters. 15 by bulging outward 15 meters. So I mean, that may not seem like a lot, but to a celestial body,
on a planetary scale.
I mean,
Like,
that is huge. You're talking that entire ice sheet underneath has got to be being ripped apart.
mm-hmm.
Like,
And that's the other thing that's interesting here because we're talking about essentially a dual layer ocean. There's the first layer of methane, the
right?
ice, and then the second layer. That would be like, I've never been in one. I assume you haven't. But if we can just imagine what it would be like to face down a tsunami,
Yeah.
Imagine a tsunami on the surface, and then the same thing happening under your feet, under
That's
the
genius.
earth.
So that comes back to like the physical wave properties, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
the waves on the surface are doing one thing, and then there's an entire protective shell, right? Like a 50 meters deep, or no, I forgot how
I think it was something like that.
the ocean, the methane ocean is 50 kilometers, and then there's the ice shell. I can't remember the exact measurement of the ice shell, but the ice shell itself being a protective shell of so many kilometers, and then another water thing underneath that can quite possibly, depending on how this ice is, could quite possibly have its own wave properties and its own motion and everything. So we're talking two different forces that could be going in two different directions that are now starting to interact with each other because of the ice shelf of that ice shell breaking apart.
Yeah.
So
Is a mess.
right, like a huge mess. And then they reference it too. They say all these things. The one that I picked out was Noah and Manu. Obviously Noah and the Ark and the Great Flood. Manu being of the, what would you call that? I don't want to say Indonesian, but it's more that South Pacific. Um,
Yeah, I can't say I'm terribly familiar personally.
I'm not 100% sure on this, but I'm 99% sure. It's like a South Pacific deity. Like in for a very crude reference, Moana. Like there was Maui who brought up the different islands from the sea, and then the people sailed from island to island, and that's very much how the South Pacific, I don't want to say culture, but like their way of life. That's kind of how they evolved through the years, and that's the stories that they tell is of that. I'm assuming the other ones are of other cultures, of other. I don't have any type of reason to believe this, but or to not believe it, for that matter, that they're of other cultures that believe in different, the Great Flood or the flooding of the world.
Events, yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that when that pull lets go, there will be a wave that will make these people cower in fear. Like all of these different stories from days of old, nobody has any type of reference
Yeah.
to how bad it's going to be.
Those are all going to look like peanuts compared to whatever it is that comes from this.
Yep.
And
so that force, do they ever directly say what that force is?
I mean, we know, or we have a pretty good guess as to what it is. I don't know if it directly says it in this lore book anywhere. I don't know that it does.
Well, if it doesn't, I'm just going to go ahead and put it out there right now. That's the Traveler hauling ass past Titan.
Yeah.
And so I all right, here comes the physics portion of which we will get yelled at, which is fine.
You will get yelled at because I'm going to shut the hell up.
I accept my inability to um, correctly portray the level of physics that's happening. We know that everything that has mass inherently has gravity, and all those gravitational forces all act on each other. Like, this is the reason why, like, Jupiter and Saturn are huge, and they're the reasons why we have the asteroid belt, and they're the reasons why we even have planets, right? Like, that's the whole reason we have things like Mars, and even the orbits that we have, the gravity between the two most massive things in our, well, I guess three most massive things in our solar system, that being Jupiter, Saturn, and the Sun, all are acting on each other, right? And since gravity is directly proportional to mass, because mass is part of the gravity formula, we know that mass, if Titan, right, this little ball of methane and ice and water, is in a certain shape, orbiting around a huge planet, that being Saturn, is also being acted on by the sun, by the gravity of the sun, is also being acted on by the gravity of Jupiter, and now something is passing by it with such a gravitational pull that it is changing the shape of the moon. Holy hell! How does the traveler's gravity? How does the gravity of the traveler, or the mass of the traveler, not completely fuck with everything in the solar system?
Well, I think because it can turn it on and off. We've talked about this a little bit before. If we equate the different true scientific cosmic forces to the forces that we know of that are wielded in the light in the Destiny universe,
right?
Gravity would equate to void. There's Nova Bomb,
right?
Is there was a reference in one of the Nova Bombs specifically to like having a gravitational pull, or maybe it was in one of the grenades, like Vortex grenade or something like
that.
Sure. But yeah, essentially when Guardians are using void energy, they are using a energy affecting gravity.
Right. And that's that's what just genuinely kind of blows my mind, is that what the traveler was using to move?
Yeah.
Because we don't see any type of propulsion system on, like, to us as the outside viewer, this is a perfectly spherical thing.
True.
Like, there's no form of propulsion that we can see. So it has to move about somehow. Otherwise, how would it have jumped from planet to planet to planet to moon to moon to moon to do all this terraforming? But what is that? Like, how is it able to move, and for it to book it that fast? And then the question comes into, did the Warmind Rasputin help out with its movement? Like, did it issue this warning thing, and it was just like, okay, it's like a game of chess, right? Like, okay, I see your Carhair White as your check, with me having two pieces left on the board, and I'm gonna suicide my queen over it just to stalemate it, type thing, right? And then that created the whole, like, oh, the Rasputin shot down the traveler, as told by Uldren Sov. So yeah, that's like all these different forces that are acting at this specific time is insane.
Yeah, there's a lot going on here. And I'm so for anyone that wasn't aware of ties to the uh the what are the words I'm looking for? The
I
real
don't know, but
world
we're really
ties.
articulate tonight.
I know. The real world ties between the Destiny subclasses and the quantum fields
Right.
in aeronautics, astrophysics. That's the word I'm looking for.
Astrophysics, I think, is the
Rolling that hour back is really done.
right. Like,
um,
the worst part is the puppers who are like, "Hey, it's 6 o'clock," and you're just like, "No, the fuck, it's not.
no, it's
You go
not.
back
Go
to sleep."
away. Yeah, but so generally speaking, the quantum field that's being manipulated by the light equates to the subclass.
Right.
So
Solar being
solar,
like nuclear power, nuclear
yep,
fission.
solar being
Um,
tied to the gluon field, which mediates nuclear strong force.
yep.
Arc being tied to the electron field,
Yep.
being, the
Electromagnetic.
excitation of that field.
Yep.
And then void being the 0 point energy, which equates to space time.
Yeah. Which
Or
gravity itself is a measure of time because you're using the speed of light.
yes, yeah.
So therefore, since that is part of the equation, it is inherently a space-time thing. Therefore, it is part of the void.
Well,
See,
and
we only approach everything on this show with science. Damn it! None of that Rasputin shot the traveler rhetoric.
yeah, and Nova Warp's just for because
Well, because video games.
video
There,
games.
I said it. I said it. I said it. Asses.
So needless to say, we can theorize that may be how the traveler was manipulating gravity, maybe to get propulsion, maybe it just, when it lets loose, it just lets loose on all cylinders and can't
Yeah.
control certain things.
Yeah.
Who knows? But regardless, the results of it moving past Titan, and do you know where that is explained? Because I did a quick cursory search and I don't believe it's explained in this lore book anywhere.
Of Titan itself
That
being stretched, or the traveler zooming past Titan.
that is the traveler that's doing it.
I don't think that there's anywhere. The closest we have is the next entry, which is the Sundown Distress. And so
Yeah.
I'm going to go ahead and read that one real quick
Okay.
to give you a little bit of a break. So that one reads as follows: Mayday, Mayday, Mayday! All Circum-Saturn stations monitoring guard. This is new Pacific Arcology, declaring a sundown loss of habitability. Habitability. Jesus Christ.
You sure you want to take this one?
Turns out I need the break. Loss of habitability. That is a hard word. Event. We have 2.9 million souls aboard. We repeat, Titan is no longer safe for human life. And this next paragraph is where I believe it is the breakdown of it. We are experiencing massive tidal forces of unknown origin. Our physics cluster detects mass growl, phaeton strikes, and sterile neutrino scattering. Possible origins include a compact dark matter object, a lambda field influence, or a polarized gravity device. So I'm going to keep reading the rest of it, and then we'll come back to that one. Satellite LiDAR confirms a tidal bulge of 40 meters, 400, repeat, 400% of ordinary tidal deformation and growing. We anticipate massive cryoseismic activity as the tidal effect recedes. Total crustal reflex will trigger a multiple hypocenter icequake swarm. Surface effects catastrophic. We are attempting to decouple tidal anchors and loosen the arcology structure. Blue water vessels are now transporting frozen citizens to lifters. We require all available ships with interplanetary capability to receive refugees. Contact New Pacific traffic control on approach. Be advised that we have no contact with any Circum-Saturn ships or stations, and we are transmitting in the blind. This message will now repeat. So, obviously, sterile neutrino scattering. That's the darkness. We know that for a fact to be of the darkness. So I'm curious if the experience that is happening on Titan is a direct influence of the light of the traveler and the darkness of the dark being that close to each other.
Yeah, I was doing some cursory searches, and I definitely have not combed through everything in 5 minutes.
The
But,
entire Destiny universe lore.
right. I couldn't find any reference to the Traveler shooting past Titan or the Traveler being explained as the cause for this gravitational anomaly.
Okay.
I think it's certainly a good theory because we know, by nature of the message that they got earlier in this lore book that Traveler has abandoned Io, is returning to Earth. But what they're experiencing on Titan is possible. It's not related to the Traveler at all. It's possible that this is all darkness related.
I was fixing to say, the one comparison we have here is staring us right in the face, and I haven't even seen it. I didn't even see it until just now. Freaking Exodus Green.
Exodus Green had a gravitational, it had a singularity, which by nature of being a black hole would be a gravitational.
Right, a polarized gravity device or something like that, right? But the fact that it came in contact with darkness.
Where was Exodus Green?
That's what I keep getting at.
So,
like Exodus Green came back in the asteroid belt, and everything about the Awoken is in the asteroid belt. I think Exodus Green was clear out here, possibly on the heliopause, possibly on the billions of rocks that are just outside Pluto, that essentially is where the Sol system ends and the universe begins.
So I have another theory here.
Okay.
So I'm trying to back up my info here. If we assume, let me see here. So the Exodus fleet that would become the Reef is supposedly located in the asteroid belt between Mars and the gas giant planets.
Right.
If we assume the Exodus Green, the point where they come out in the Reef when they return.
So real quick, we also need to make a real quick thing here. Remember, Exodus Green was swallowed whole in that singularity and was in the distributary.
Right. No, absolutely. So I'm saying if we assume that the exit point when Mara and crew leave the distributary is also the original entry point where they went into the distributary along with Exodus Green.
Sure.
And that exit point is in or near the Reef, and the Reef is in the asteroid belt between Mars and the gas giants.
Sure.
One of those gas giants being Saturn,
Right.
is it possible then, with knowing its location, that the singularity that pulled in the Exodus Green is also the same thing that caused the gravitational anomaly on Titan?
I think you're right. I think we're onto something here, and that's where I say the answer to what has been doing this to Titan, what did this to Titan, has been staring me in the face in this lore entry with the 3 words: sterile neutrino scattering. Everything about that is the darkness, because that's
Yeah.
exactly how Asher describes the Taken. And
That's how it's described anytime the Taken. Asher, Ikora, Ghost,
any of them.
all have mentioned sterile neutrinos multiple times. And it's
Absolutely.
always as a prelude to like the Taken spawning in.
And that's it. That's it. The Taken spawning in. And when they spawn in, there's this black like darkness, black hole bubble that appears and expands outward and then dissipates. And when it dissipates, the Taken are there. So I
So
think we're on to something here. I think that the Exodus. I think the Exodus Green. So I have a few things here. I think the Exodus Green was actually pretty close to Titan.
it's
Maybe
I would believe that. Yeah.
maybe not right on top of Titan, but somewhere in the proximity of Titan when this black hole happens. And that's where I'm curious. Like, obviously, this black hole was the darkness, right? Like, it had some sort of entity to it.
Well, the black hole that swallowed the Exodus Green was it was the meeting of dark and light.
Right.
Was the meeting of those two energy signatures, those two,
I was I was going to say
waves.
dark and light, the tools,
The force, not the entity.
the infinite the infinite wavelength versus the zero wavelength, and everything trying to divide by 0.
Yeah. The uh, immovable object versus the unstoppable force.
Yes.
Kind of thing.
And that's what created that singularity in that black hole that Mara was out there and poop. And
Yep.
I think we're on to something here. I think that specific event is what caused this exact thing.
So
Because that would explain the gravitational pull,
Mhm.
right? Because a black hole has insane amount of gravitational pull, right? Like that would explain that would help explain why the Traveler didn't have this effect on everything around it, right?
Yeah.
Like, and all this being about the same time, and that car hair white thing going out all at once. We know that got to the Exodus Green, and the Exodus Green had that same signal sent to them, and they were like, "Fuck that! We are not of humanity. We are a different life force. Like we are a different thing altogether. Like we are leaving humanity, and we are going to be something else. We wish to be not considered in whatever fight you're going to have out here." I think we're onto something here. I think we just had a breakthrough moment just now.
I think this lines up pretty well. So just as a little cherry on top, sterile neutrinos are an actual thing, or
Right.
an actual hypothetical thing.
Yep.
They're hypothetical particles that are believed to interact only via gravity and not any other fundamental interaction of the standard model of the universe.
Yep.
So sterile neutrinos, the only thing that can affect them in any way whatsoever is gravitational force. Taken might literally spawn out of black holes.
I think they do. I think those are mini. I think those are mini black holes that open up and allow Taken to pop out of them. And we know that the Hive experiment with this stuff. Savathun did it.
Oh yeah.
With her hole trying to create this black hole and stick a thrall in it, and then to try to stick her worm in there to try to get the worm to feed off of itself for eternity.
Mm-hmm.
Like, holy shit. I think we just had a breakthrough just now. I think we just had that aha moment.
Yeah, no, I think that's probably the best theory we've come up with thus far about what may have been causing this to happen on Titan.
Holy cow. Well,
So
now that I've completely broken myself and we are well past our 2 hour mark, let's try to get through these last two parts, which is a part 1 and part 2, fairly quickly.
well, and I suppose that's something I was gonna ask. This is mostly just exposition about the aftermath.
Yeah, we can just read these as a thing.
Yeah, okay.
Do you want to take part 1 and I'll take part 2?
Sure, that works. So this is The Water Sun, part 1. I don't think that's a reference to anything other than this is now a world of very turbulent water, or methane. Mare Yamashita dives through bad water. It's not water at all, but that's what the dolphins have nicknamed it, Bad Ocean, because it sucks to swim in it. At nearly negative 200 degrees Celsius, the methane is so viciously frigid that vacuum, the acme of pure cold, is actually keeping Mari warm. He wears a soft suit stuffed with microscopic layers of vacuum, packed in turn with crystalline nanostructures that prevent even light from crossing the gaps. This means the chill cannot get in, and his body heat cannot get out. So he is now baking to death in an ocean as cold as Dante's Ninth. Of course, he could vent heat, the suit allows that, but spreading the warmth will force nitrogen out of the methane-ethane ocean, and the bubbles will slow him down. This is unacceptable for a lot of reasons, one of which is that he's already too slow. Liquid methane is about half as dense as water, so his huge fins and hissing thrusters struggle to push against it. Another reason is that he will die if he can't get back inside in time. Maori, his sensorium whispers. He's turned the volume way down. Come back. This isn't worth your life. Sorry, Mia, he thinks. It has to be worth my life, or I'm worth more than them, and I know I'm not. I put them there. It's my job to let them out. He always loved the stupid little swarmers. Dome 2's understructure crouches around him, a maze of ultralight support struts and twisting bundles of cable. The shadow of a behemoth supercarrier blocks the dim sunlight above. He feels the thin howl of the ship's thrusters, fighting to move out of mooring and people to an evacuation lifter. If Maori looks down, his lights illuminate a dusty wash of azotosomic plankton, primitive methane life. He looks back to Dome 1. He can barely see the sleeky fat form of the Duker, the water ocean research submarine, docked to the arcology's underside. He heads down. His dolphins are already safe. He has to get the swarmers out of their research pen. Tidal anchors decoupled, Xenia McCaig reports. Dome 1 structure is as loose as we can make it. Dome 2 is showing temperature faults, but I've got drones on the way. Maori, please. We have no idea what'll happen when the quake hits. Get back in here. I'll be back in a few, he promises. I'm just going to cut the research pen open so the swarmers can get free. Oh, Hala, Ishmael Barat whispers, it's gone. What's gone? The tidal pull, the ghost mass. It just left. The moon is collapsing back to spheroid shape. I'm detecting primary waves in the subsurface ocean. It's a quake. It's a quake. Maori, get away from the substructure. Get clear. Maori imagines 60 plus meters of bulging moon. Titan's mass hauled up into a teardrop pointed at the sky, suddenly released, smashing and scraping and grinding back into equilibrium, cracks in the ice spewing plumes of water and ammonia, continent-sized shelves slamming and rebounding, caving like bergs, the whole vast inner ocean sloshing back into its shape. The swarmers, he says, and he jettisons his buoyancy tanks. Without that lift, he is so much denser than the bed then the bad water around him that plunges like a skydiver towards the cross brace below, where the swarmer pen is anchored. Titan's gravity may be gentle, but even gentle acceleration adds up. He hits hard, and the spin metal surface blasts the air out of his lungs. He gasps and gags, scrabbles for purchase before he slides off and falls into the abyss. He's going over. No, no, he is not going over. He will not fall.
Part 2 continues. The gecko grip surfaces on his forearms, catch and hold. Whew, he says, as he's never meant anything so insane, so deeply. Swarmers seethe and pulsate in the perforated plastic sack. Not Titan's highest life, nor its lowest. They hive across the icy sea bottom in enormous braided patterns that speak to Mare of intelligence. Not individually, not even at the hive level, but some kind of vast concert, conducted perhaps by the leviathans down beneath the ice shell, communicating across the barrier by magnetic whisper that the swarmers receive via organic squids. An ecology spanning methane life and water ammonia life. Why? How? Mare wants so badly to know, but if his curiosity brought the swarmers here, only for them to be caught in the quake, dashed apart against the arcology struts, he'll never forgive himself. He should have set up a remote release, but he was complacent. He gets a fistful of the pin's smart plastic surface and fires the disintegrate signal through his glove. The polymer shreds and the swarmers scatter, their tiny bodies siphoning liquid methane as they pump down and away. Safe, safe. I made it, he calls. On my way back up. The quake hits. 150 meters below, the icy basis of Kraken Mare rolls like liquid. The arcologies answer the low geological wail with a cacophony of groans and shrieks, joints flexing, tethers snapping taut, substructures soaking up unthinkable mechanical energy, trying to keep anything from breaking. Something must have frozen hard down in Dome's 2 substructure. Something must have grown brittle. The snap is almost spinal. The smash hulk of a drone tumbles past Mare as he tries to skulk backwards away from the super dense arm of plasteel dropping like a guillotine through all too thin methane to strike him in absence. He's on the ice seafloor, 240 meters down. Someone's shouting in his ear. It's Maya. She's always there in an emergency, always there for her team. Mare! Mare! You're awake! Respond if able. His sensorium tells him he's been in a medical coma while cryo machines fight to save his life. Massive blunt trauma, concussion. The suit, as ever, tougher than the human being inside. Dome 2 has toppled partially. It's leaning toward the sea on damaged substructure. He should go help. Mare, Maya says in a level voice he does not recognize. He's never heard her scared before. Listen to me. The quake is over, but a shelf of ice collapsed onto Kraken Mare. The displacement wave is coming now, and you won't be safe on the bottom. You must reach the surface and get above wave level. That will be at least 50 meters. Surface? Wave? About 50 meters? Mare cues a blast of nootrope to clean up his thinking and grunts aloud in shock. He gets it. Oh, he gets it now. He has to run. I understand. I've lost my buoyancy. Ascending on thrusters. He makes it to the surface. He's up there in plenty of time. He can even see Dome 1 still intact, though a lot of the surrounding rigging is damaged. One of the creepy exo soldiers stands outside, beckoning to him with a laser dazzle, guiding him in. Mare opens his suit wings to their full membranous span. A single mighty stroke of paramuscle cups the air and hauls him up out of the sea. He's aloft. Titan's air is thick, and Titan gravity is light. And like a huge bat, he can fly. He puts his head down and starts building altitude. heading towards the beckoning Exo. The Exo's laser blinks code at him. Go with God, you poor. Mare looks back. First he sees the supercarrier, tragically buoyant, tragically light, built for seas with gentle 1 meter tides, but now riding the greatest wave Titan has ever seen, directly into Titan Dome 2's crippled substructure. In 152 kilopascals of air pressure, the pandemonium sound of the collision has the gut mulching power of a rocket booster. The entire arcology collapses down onto the ship, into the sea. Then he blinks past the devastation and recognizes the sheer scale, the utter speed, the complete imminence of that unthinkable methane wave coming down on him. Oh man, he says. So that's literally it. That's the end. Like that's I I I feel like everyone dies.
But do they?
That's the thing. Like 2.9 million people and this entire like I don't know, like it's hard to think that everyone didn't die. You know, like it's I mean the fact that the Exo is blinking code at him, right? Like go with God, you poor soul. Like I, yeah. All he wants
So,
all he wants to do is save this one species of life from being ripped apart and destroyed by the domes. And he manages to do so, but at what cost? Like this methane wave has literally sent a carrier slamming into the dome with the force of a rocket. That's yeah.
it's pretty nuts. However, that if we want to put a spinfoil hat on, that
All
may
right.
not that may not be the end of the story for all of the characters involved. Um,
It's
so
definitely the end of Mari. I'm
yeah, I don't think Mari made it.
pretty sure Mari died.
Yeah.
When he turns
Um,
around, he's like, "Oh, geez." I think of it as like a Rick and Morty. Like, "Oh, geez." Like
no,
he's going down.
yeah. So I don't necessarily have anything that actually ties these two together other than very tangential evidence and just uh what to say? Um similarities
Okay.
in certain situation. So,
Okay, I
if
got
we
my
do
spinfoil hat on.
if we do a search for some of the character names that we came across in the last days of Kraken Mare, one of them that pops out is Maya or Mia.
Okay.
And if you search her full name, you don't get anything. But if you do search just her first name, you get an entry that relates back to Clovis Bray and Elsie Bray, specifically an individual Exo named Mia 9.
Interesting.
And she only shows up in two entries. These are the recovered memory of part of the Legacy's Lament book
Yeah.
in regards to Banshee and Elsie kind of fighting back the Vex invasion.
Yeah.
And the similarities just stack up a little bit. So recovered memory of Mia 9 goes something along these lines. The ringing is started to even out. I'm back up on my feet. Our evac ship, it's gone. The AI destroyed it. Nearly killed us all in the process. In fact, I think he did get some of us. He did. Oh God, Hector, and he's not the only one. So the rest of this is not going to be relevant to the point I'm trying to make because it's mostly discussion between Maya 9, Elsie Bray, and uh, the exo that will be known as Banshee. Um,
But that's very similar to what we just read here.
it has enough similarity that makes me go, I wonder. The fact that the very first couple of lines from this Mia 9 EXO that was fighting alongside Elsie and Banshee, which would have been post collapse.
Yep.
And the very first lines are about an evac ship being destroyed by an AI. Just seems a little
super similar, super suspect, right?
But there is no other direct ties that I can.
Interesting.
But it makes you wonder. Like the only person we know for sure is gone, in my opinion, is Mare. So maybe Mia made it out. She was so anti-EXO, but maybe it was just a survival thing. Maybe it was just a like
either that or it was like she saw no way to like all of Titan's research had now been taken away from her and the entire arcology is gone. Like all that's left is the darkness and nothing else matters. I'm curious about that.
So it's possible that eventually she became the EXO of who then went on to fight with Clovis One and Elsie Bray and close the Vex portal on Europa.
Man. Holy cow. What a freaking story tonight. Like so many revelations and emotions throughout this entire thing. Like this has been a lot deeper of a trip than I expected it to be. Wow.
Is yet another one that again that there are no small simple stories.
There are no small simple stories. Case in point, we're almost an hour past.
Yes, and we should probably work to do what we can to try and wrap it up.
Yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and just wrap it up right now because I can't think like I mean I think we're onto something with the whole idea of that. I was always under the impression that it was Io or that it was the travelers zipping past that caused Titan to do this, but I'm now more and more. I'm probably about 99.9% leaning towards it was whatever happened to the extra screen. That same gravitational event that happened there is what fucked with Titan here and caused that collapse of the domes. So
that's where I'm at as well, at least until other evidence presents itself.
Yep. So, well, I guess I'll start off with our thank yous. Thank you to Maya or Mia or however we're pronouncing her name, because we have such consistency here on Myths and Stories. We're nothing if not consistent. For wanting to save everyone in the arcology and wanting to save specifically Pell, right? Is that?
Yeah,
I've already forgotten. Or Pell.
Pell was the last name. I think it was Sheeran Pell, something like that.
Now I'm gonna have to go find it.
You're welcome.
To get a proper thank you to her. Shanice Pell. Thank you, Shanice Pell, for doing your research and sending a deep space probe out and for warning us of the darkness that is coming and that led the Warmind into survival mode. I don't know why I'm thanking Clovis and the Warmind at this point in time, but thank you for both of you because you're both nuts. Um, yeah, that's. Thank you to our special guest introducer, the wonderful and talented Mystic Penguin 15, who is literally the greatest human being on the planet and is completely asleep next to me watching whatever show she's watching on her phone. Thank you to Netflix for putting Mystic Penguin to sleep constantly. And as always, thank you, Myth. Like without your breakdown of some of this stuff, and I don't know. I feel like I'd be lost in the ether out here. And as always, I absolutely love these long talks and discussions we have.
Yeah, I have a lot of fun bouncing ideas off each, coming to some new conclusions even uh, that challenge some of our previous ideas for things. So
Absolutely, gives us a deeper understanding of this world that we're in, that we play in. Um, that I am all too convinced that it's a real place. It's the real future of humanity. So, and of course, as a final thank you to any of our viewers who listen to this throughout the week, and any new followers that we get. We absolutely appreciate it, and it's as much as we kind of do this for ourselves to kind of come up with these theories and better understandings of what we come against in the darkness and in the Destiny universe. We also like sharing that info with everyone out there, and I like approaching things with that scientifical mind and that scientifical thought of how do I explain this with science. And yeah, so thank you, science.
yes,
So
thank
yeah,
you, science, for literally everything.
for literally everything. So as always, from all of us lore nerds to all of you guardians out there, we'll see you next week.